All right, welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. Today, we're going deep into the Enneagram.
Oh, this is going to be good.
It is, it is. And specifically,
Yeah,
we're going to be
right.
talking about passions and fixations,
Yes.
which some people like to call
Sins.
the sins, yeah.
Yeah.
And we have a video by Antonio Fernandez Guerrero that someone sent in.
Awesome.
So we're going to be using his insights to kind of illuminate each of the 9 types and...
Wonderful. Yeah. I think, going beyond just like listing out traits
Yeah.
for each number, it's like, how can we see that these passions or sins are really more like compasses
I love that.
that point us to our greatest strengths and
Oh, that's good.
our biggest pitfalls?
Yeah, I love that. Compasses, okay.
Yeah.
So before we jump into the specific types,
Yeah.
I think we need to do a little disclaimer about this whole sin thing,
Oh, for sure.
because I know it can be
Okay.
kind of a loaded term,
Yeah, very much so.
especially for people who are new to the Enneagram.
Totally.
Absolutely, yeah.
Help us out.
It's crucial to remember that in this context, sin isn't about like moral judgment
Right.
or religious condemnation.
Yeah.
It's more about understanding that like these core patterns,
Okay.
they kind of lead us astray from our like
Right.
true selves.
Yeah, yeah.
Think of it like,
Yeah.
an archer aiming for the bullseye,
Okay.
and they have like a consistent miss in a particular direction.
Right.
That miss
Yeah.
represents the passion.
Yeah, okay. So it's not like
Yeah.
good or bad.
Yeah, not good or bad.
It's just this,
It's more like,
like you said, this compass,
yeah, it's more like you're,
this direction that we go in.
yeah, you're off the mark in this particular
Yeah.
direction.
Yeah. Okay. So each of these,
Yeah.
each type's passion is connected to a specific fixation,
Yes,
right?
it is. Yep.
Which is like a way of thinking or behaving that keeps them stuck
Right.
in these less than ideal patterns.
Yes.
Okay. So let's start with type 9, peacemaker.
And the easygoing, peace-loving 9.
Their passion is inertia,
Yes.
which as a non-9, I've always found this a little perplexing.
Oh, yeah.
How can,
Yeah.
doing nothing be a problem?
I think it's a great question.
Yeah.
And it really gets to the heart of like the 9's inner world.
Okay.
So remember, their core desire
Yeah.
is for peace
Yeah.
and harmony,
Yeah.
both internally and externally.
Right.
So their inertia isn't simply laziness.
Right.
It's more about this deep-seated
Okay.
resistance
Okay.
to anything that might disrupt that sense of peace.
So it's like maintaining equilibrium at all costs.
Yes.
Interesting. It can show up in a couple key ways.
Okay.
So first, 9s can have difficulty
Okay.
initiating things.
Right.
Whether it's starting a new project, making a decision,
Yeah.
or even expressing their needs.
Yeah.
They're hesitant to, rock the boat.
Right. So on the one hand, we have this resistance to change,
Right.
this staying at rest,
Right.
like Newton's law.
Exactly. Exactly.
But then there's another side to that.
There is, which is that they can also get stuck
Right.
in routines and habits and relationships that are no longer serving them.
Wow.
Even if those things are, causing conflict or
that-
resentment.
So it's this double-edged sword.
Yes,
It can keep them stuck
absolutely.
or prevent them from taking action
Yeah.
in the first place.
And that's where their fixation of indolence comes in.
Okay.
So it's not just about, laziness.
Right.
It's about forgetting themselves.
Oh, wow.
Their needs, their desires. They kind of merge with others,
Right.
go with the flow to avoid conflict
Yeah.
or disruption.
And this kind of plays into them
He
being
does.
the 0
Yes.
on the Enneagram, right?
Totally.
Like they're constantly trying to blend in.
Right. They're trying to not stand out,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Not be seen.
Not be seen, not rock the boat.
Yeah, there's this underlying sense of feeling insignificant, overlooked, unimportant.
Yeah.
So they kind of minimize themselves, their wants, their passions,
Yeah.
to maintain that sense of peace and connection.
Wow. Okay.
Right.
That's a really insightful way to look at the 9.
Yeah.
So let's shift gears a little bit
Okay.
to type 1,
Yeah. All right.
the reformer,
The reformer. Yeah.
the one that wants to make things right.
The one that wants to make things right.
Yes.
Their passion is anger.
Yeah.
This one always throws people for a loop because aren't ones
Right.
all about peace and justice?
Totally. So that's where it gets really interesting with the Enneagram.
Right.
It challenges our assumptions.
Yeah.
And it reveals these hidden dynamics
Yeah.
within each type.
Yeah.
So ones might not always express their anger outwardly,
Right.
but it's definitely simmering beneath the surface.
Oh, yeah.
It's directed at all the imperfections they see in the world
Yeah.
in themselves.
Yes.
Right.
And even in others.
So it's like an internal pressure cooker.
Yes,
That's
exactly.
frustration.
Yes,
Yeah.
and because they have such a strong sense of right and wrong,
Yeah.
they can get really worked up about things
Yeah.
that other types might just like shrug off.
Totally. And it makes me think about their fixation on perfectionism,
Yes.
which can be both a strength and a curse, right?
It can.
Yeah.
Yeah, ones are driven by this constant desire
Right.
to improve things, to make the world a better place.
Yeah.
But that drive for perfection can become a real burden,
Yeah.
leading to self-criticism,
Yeah.
resentment,
Yeah.
and even burnout.
So it's this
Yeah.
striving,
Yeah.
this inner critic
Yes.
that's never quite satisfied.
Never satisfied.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if there's any way for ones to channel their anger in a healthier way.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And that gets to the heart of why understanding these passions is so important.
Yeah.
It's not about like suppressing them. It's about recognizing them and finding constructive outlets.
Right.
So for ones that might involve, channeling their anger into activism,
Okay.
social justice work,
Yeah.
creative pursuits that allow them to express their ideals.
So instead of turning that anger inwards,
Yes.
they can use it to make a positive impact
Exactly.
on the world.
Yes.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
So let's move on to type 2,
Okay.
the helper.
All right.
And this one is particularly interesting because their passion is pride.
Yes. Pride. Yes.
Ooh, a very loaded term.
It has a lot of baggage.
It does, especially in religious context.
In religious context.
Yeah, but
But as we said, Enneagram's not about moral judgment.
right,
It's about understanding these patterns.
right.
So how does pride show up
Yeah.
in the two's personality?
Uh-huh.
Well,
Mhm.
twos are incredibly loving and generous people,
Right.
but their pride can show up in their belief that they're the only ones who can help in a particular way.
Interesting.
So they can become so focused on giving and meeting other people's needs
Right.
that they neglect their own.
Right.
So it's almost like they're saying, I know best how to help you.
I see.
Right.
So they're taking pride in their helpfulness,
Yes,
but it can become a little controlling.
it can.
Yeah.
And that ties into their fixation on false abundance.
Okay.
So twos often believe that they have a limitless capacity to give,
Okay.
which can mask a deeper need for love and validation.
Interesting.
So it's like they're trying to earn love
okay.
through their actions.
Oh, so on the surface,
Yeah.
it looks like selfless generosity.
Right.
But underneath,
Yeah.
there's this need for recognition and appreciation.
Yes, exactly.
And this isn't something that they're doing consciously.
Not at all.
It's just a pattern.
It's an unconscious pattern,
Yeah.
a way of coping with deeper insecurities.
That's so fascinating.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, is their pride rooted in insecurity?
That's a beautiful question.
Like they're overcompensating
Yes.
for a fear of not being loved.
It really highlights the complexity
Wow.
of the Enneagram.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These passions and fixations are
Yeah.
often interwoven
They are.
with deeper psychological
Yes.
patterns.
Absolutely.
Okay, now I'm really curious to hear about type 3.
Okay.
The achiever,
All right.
their passion is vanity.
Yes.
And I have to say, when I hear the word vanity,
Yeah.
it makes me think of superficiality.
It makes sense, right?
Right. So,
But in the Enneagram,
Yeah.
we want to understand like how the three's desire for success and recognition
right.
can become a driving force in their lives.
Okay, so it's not about
Yeah.
being obsessed with their appearance.
Right.
It's about this need to achieve.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's more about that.
So it's about the image,
Yes.
the perception of success,
Yes.
rather than actual accomplishments.
It's more about that.
Interesting.
And this ties into their fixation on deceit. Okay.
Which deceit.
Yeah, and it's not
Well,
about
see threes as, like,
Right.
deceitful.
it's not about being intentionally dishonest.
Okay.
It's more about this tendency to deceive themselves,
Okay.
to believe their own hype, even when it might not be entirely true.
Interesting. Okay.
But so
How do they deceive themselves?
think of it like this. Threes are so good at presenting a
Right.
polished and successful image to the world
Right.
that they sometimes start to believe that image themselves.
Oh.
So they might downplay their failures,
Oh.
exaggerate their accomplishments,
Yeah.
or simply avoid situations where they might not appear successful.
I see.
Right.
So it's about keeping up appearances.
Yes.
Yeah, and I can see how that would lead to their other fixation,
He does.
which is restlessness.
Yes.
They're always striving,
right.
always chasing that next achievement,
Yes.
never quite satisfied
Never satisfied.
with what they've accomplished.
And that restless energy can be both a strength and a weakness.
Right.
It fuels their ambition
Right.
and drive. But it can also prevent them from, experiencing true contentment
Right.
or enjoying the present moment.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow. Okay. These passions and fixations
They're
are
complex.
really complex.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's move on to type 4,
Okay.
the individualist.
All right.
And their passion is envy.
Yes.
And I feel like
Yeah.
this is another one that is often misunderstood.
It is, absolutely.
Yes.
Envy is often seen as this,
Petty, negative.
emotion. Yeah.
Yeah. But in the Enneagram, it's about.
It's about understanding the 4's deep longing
Right.
for something they feel is missing in their lives.
Okay. So it's not
I don't know.
wanting what other people have.
Right.
It's about this feeling of lack.
It's about this sense of lack.
Lapping completeness.
Yes.
Yeah.
4s are incredibly sensitive and introspective, and they
Yeah.
often feel like they're different. Right.
Like they don't quite fit in.
Yeah.
And this can lead to a sense of envy, not necessarily for material possessions,
Right.
but for qualities or experiences
Right.
they perceive others as having
Okay.
that they lack.
So this yearning for something they feel is missing
Yes, exactly.
in themselves.
Yes.
And that ties into their fixation on melancholy.
it does.
Right.
This tendency to like
Romanticize the past.
romanticize the past,
Idealize what they don't have.
idealize what they don't have.
Dwell on their flaws
Yes.
and shortcomings.
Absolutely.
So they're constantly comparing themselves.
Yes.
Coming up short.
And it fuels that envy and that melancholy.
And that's all tied to their other fixation.
It is.
Which is false deficiency,
Yes.
which is this exaggerated sense of lack.
Right. This belief that they're
Right.
inherently flawed or
Yeah.
incomplete.
Wow. That's some heavy stuff.
It is.
It is. So
It is. I'm really fascinated to dive into the other types.
Yes.
But we're going to have to wait for part 2
Yes.
to continue our exploration
Absolutely.
of passions and fixations
Yeah.
on the Enneagram.
Sounds good. Welcome back.
All right. So before the break,
Yeah.
we were talking about the 4
Yes, the 4s. Yeah.
and
That'd be interesting.
their envy and their melancholy.
Yes.
So let's move on to 5.
Okay, the 5.
Investigator.
Yes, the investigator.
And their passion is avarice,
Yes.
which at first glance I would think,
Yeah.
okay, this is about money.
Right. Yeah, it's easy to kind of jump to that conclusion.
Yeah.
But remember, the Enneagram operates on a much deeper
Right.
psychological level.
Right.
So for 5s, avarice is more about hoarding
Yeah.
knowledge and energy and resources, anything that makes them feel safe and secure
Right.
in a world that often feels overwhelming.
Oh, so it's like they're building a fortress
Yes.
of information,
A fortress of self-sufficiency
of sufficiency
Yeah.
to protect themselves from the world.
from those perceived threats of the outside world.
Right.
Yeah, 5s have this deep-seated fear
Okay.
of being inadequate or not having enough
Right.
to cope with life's challenges.
Right.
So they accumulate knowledge and skills and resources
Yeah.
as a way to feel prepared.
So it's like, if I just know enough,
Yes.
if I have enough,
Yes.
then I'll be safe.
Then I'll be safe. Exactly.
Yeah.
And this can manifest in, some interesting ways. Like, for
Yeah.
example, a 5 might spend hours researching a topic,
Okay.
but never actually apply that knowledge
Right.
in the real world.
Right. Yeah, like they're preparing for
Yeah.
a metaphorical apocalypse.
Yes. Always anticipating that worst case scenario.
Right.
And this ties into their fixation on isolation.
Right.
So 5s need space and solitude
Right.
to recharge and process information.
Yeah.
And they can feel very drained by social interaction,
Totally.
overwhelmed by too much external stimulation.
So their avarice isn't just hoarding things.
It's not.
It's hoarding energy.
Yes, it's about hoarding their energy and emotional resources.
Right.
And this can lead to their other fixation, detachment.
Right.
So 5s can become so focused on their inner world,
Right.
on their pursuit of knowledge and understanding,
Yeah.
that they disconnect from their emotions
Right.
and from the people around them.
It's like they're building this invisible wall.
Yes.
Yeah.
Protecting themselves from vulnerability or intimacy.
Wow.
And that detachment can be both a blessing and a curse.
Right.
It allows them to observe the world objectively,
Right.
to think deeply and critically.
Right.
But it can also prevent them from experiencing,
Right.
the full richness
Right.
of human connection and emotional depth.
Wow.
Okay.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
So let's move on to 6.
Okay.
The loyalist.
The loyalist. All right.
And their passion is fear.
Fear.
Yeah.
That seems pretty straightforward.
It does seem pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
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 You know, 6s are definitely known for their anxiety
Right.
and their tendency to scan for those potential threats.
Right.
But their fear goes beyond just worrying about,
Right.
everyday dangers.
Right.
It's this deeply rooted need
Yeah.
for security and belonging.
Well, it's not just physical safety.
It's not just physical.
It's about feeling safe
It's about feeling safe and secure
in their relationships,
in their relationships, in the world around them.
in world.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
6s often struggle with doubt
Okay.
and uncertainty,
All right.
both in themselves
Yeah.
and in others.
It sounds exhausting.
It can be. Yeah, they're constantly questioning,
Yeah.
analyzing,
Yeah.
seeking reassurance.
I can only imagine
Yeah.
those thoughts.
And this ties into their fixation
Okay.
on doubt,
Doubt. Yeah.
which can manifest in a couple ways.
Okay.
First,
6s can doubt their own abilities
okay,
and judgment,
yeah,
leading to indecision and procrastination.
right,
They might seek approval from authority figures
Right.
or rely on external structures and rules.
so that's like outsourcing their decision-making
Yes, exactly.
to someone who seems more knowledgeable or stable.
To something or someone they perceive as, more stable, more knowledgeable.
Right.
But the other side of that doubt
Yeah,
is that they can also be suspicious
right.
of those authority figures and
Right.
institutions.
Yeah.
They might question motives or look for hidden agendas
Oh, wow.
or even rebel against perceived control.
So it's this push and pull.
It's a push and pull, exactly. They
Yeah.
want that security, but
Mhm.
they also fear being controlled.
Right, being trapped.
Yes. It's this paradoxical dance
Yeah.
that 6s often find themselves in,
Wow.
craving stability and belonging,
Yeah.
but also fearing, being trapped or betrayed.
Yeah. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
let's move on to 7.
Okay.
The enthusiasts.
All right, the enthusiast.
And their passion is gluttony,
The gluttony, yes.
which again,
Yeah.
at first glance,
Yeah.
seems pretty self-explanatory.
Right, you think, oh, it's about pleasure and indulgence.
Right, exactly.
But remember, we're looking beyond the surface.
Right,
So for 7s, gluttony isn't just about
right.
overindulging in food or material possessions.
Okay,
It's about this insatiable hunger for experiences,
okay.
for novelty, for excitement.
So it's like a mental gluttony.
It is.
This desire to just devour all the good things
Yes.
that life has to offer.
They're driven by this fear of missing out,
Right,
a fear of boredom or pain.
right, yeah.
They want to experience everything,
Yeah.
keep their options open,
Totally.
avoid feeling trapped or limited.
Yeah, and I can see how that would manifest in
Yeah.
like constantly pursuing new adventures,
Yes.
new relationships, new hobbies.
Yes. Constantly on the go, seeking that next thrill.
Yeah.
And this ties into their fixation on planning,
Planning.
which might seem counterintuitive.
It does, yeah.
You'd think someone so spontaneous wouldn't be a planner.
Right.
But for 7s, planning is a way to manage their anxiety
Okay.
about missing out.
Oh.
So they're constantly anticipating
Like,
that
okay.
next exciting experience,
Right.
which can prevent them from fully enjoying
Right.
the present moment.
So they're always living in the future.
Yes.
Yeah.
Their minds are already on the next adventure
Right.
before the current one has even ended.
Wow, okay.
And that can create a sense of
Yeah.
restlessness and dissatisfaction. So
Yeah.
they might flit from one thing to the next,
Right.
never truly feeling fulfilled or
Yeah.
content.
Okay, and now for the final type on our list,
Okay.
type 8,
Right.
the challenger.
Yes. The challenger.
And their passion is lust.
Lust, yes. Which again,
Yeah, another loaded term.
a lot of baggage.
A lot of cultural baggage.
Yes. But in the Enneagram,
Yeah.
it has a much broader meaning.
Okay.
So for 8s, lust is about this intense craving
Okay.
for intensity and control
Okay.
in all areas of their lives.
So it's not just physical pleasure.
It's not just physical pleasure.
It's this need.
It's this need to dominate,
Yeah.
to be in charge,
Yeah.
to make things happen.
That's a good way to put it.
So,
Yeah.
8s are incredibly powerful and assertive individuals.
Yeah.
They have this innate need
Right.
to protect themselves and those they care about.
Right.
And this can manifest
Yeah.
in a need to control their environment, their relationships,
Uh,
even their own emotions.
Yeah. So I can imagine it's intimidating
It can.
to be around an 8.
It can be.
but also exhilarating.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
And this ties into their fixation
Okay.
on vengeance.
Vengeance.
Yeah, but it's not about seeking revenge, like in a petty or vindictive way.
Right.
It's more about this deep-seated need
Right.
to right wrongs,
Yeah.
to protect the vulnerable,
Yeah.
and to ensure fairness and justice.
So they have this inner code of honor
They do.
that drives them.
Yes.
Yeah.
To fight for what they believe in.
Right.
Even if it means going against the grain or
Yeah.
challenging authority.
Yeah.
So,
I can see how that ties into their other fixation. Rebellion.
Yes, rebellion.
Yeah.
They're not afraid to break the rules
Right.
or challenge the status quo.
Well, it's necessary.
If it's necessary, exactly.
Yeah.
8s are fiercely independent and self-reliant.
Right.
They have a strong sense of justice
Yeah.
and a deep aversion to anything that feels,
Yeah.
controlling or oppressive.
Right.
So we've covered
a lot of ground.
a lot of ground.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see how
It is.
each type's passion and fixation
Yeah.
creates this.
Tapestry of strengths and challenges.
Absolutely. It really highlights the beauty and complexity
Right.
of the Enneagram.
Yeah.
Each type has its own unique gifts
Right.
and its own areas for growth.
Yeah. So by understanding
By understanding these passions and fixations,
Yeah.
we can start to see ourselves and others with more compassion
Yes.
and understanding.
Totally. But before we wrap up,
Yeah.
I want to know
Okay.
how we can use this knowledge
Yes, good question.
to make positive changes in our lives.
It's a great question. How do we apply this?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
we've done all this exploring,
Yeah.
but what's the next step?
Right.
So how do we actually take all this information
Yeah.
and apply it to our lives?
The $1,000,000 question.
It is, yeah.
We can explore these passions, these fixations,
Right.
these hidden drivers within each type.
Right.
But then, what do we actually do with this knowledge?
Right. It starts with that crucial first step.
Okay.
Self-awareness.
Okay.
Recognizing our own dominant passion,
Right.
understanding how it influences our
Right.
thoughts, feelings, and behaviors,
Okay.
both for better
Right.
and for worse.
So it's not enough to just know your type.
It's not enough.
You have to actually observe yourself
Yes.
in the real world and see how this stuff is playing out.
Exactly. And that's where it can get a little tricky
Oh.
because these passions are so ingrained in us.
Right.
We often don't even realize
Yeah.
that they're driving our actions.
Yeah, we think we're being totally rational.
We think we're acting rationally,
Yeah.
but in reality, we're being pulled along
Right.
by these unconscious forces.
It's like we're on autopilot.
We're on autopilot, just
Uh-huh.
reacting in predictable ways
Yeah.
without even realizing we have other options.
Right, right.
So the key is to start bringing those automatic responses
Okay.
into conscious awareness.
Okay.
Notice when your passion is taking over,
Yeah.
when it's leading you down a path
Yeah.
that might not be serving you.
So, for example, if you're a 2
Yeah.
and you're constantly overgiving,
Yes.
even when you're feeling depleted and exhausted.
Yeah, that might be a sign that your pride's in the driver's seat.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Or if you're a 5 and you're feeling isolated,
Yes. So
drawn,
that
this
avarice
could be your avarice.
leading you to retreat into that inner world.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So we're starting to see those red flags, the warning signs.
The warning signs.
But what do we do then?
Right. So that's where the work begins.
Okay.
And the good news is
Yeah.
that there are many paths to transformation.
Okay.
Some people find therapy or coaching really helpful,
Right.
while others prefer to explore through journaling,
Yeah.
meditation, spiritual practices.
Yeah. So there's not a one-size-fits-all.
There's no one-size-fits-all approach.
Yeah.
It's about finding what resonates with you, what helps you become more aware of your patterns
Yeah.
and make conscious choices.
Okay. And this is a lifelong process,
It
right?
is a lifelong journey, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not about achieving perfection
Right.
or eradicating these passions altogether. It's
Mhm.
about learning to work with them,
Okay.
to channel their energy in healthy and productive ways.
So instead of seeing them as our enemies,
Yes.
we can actually kind of use them.
We can use them as allies, as
Good.
sources of energy
Right.
and motivation.
I like it now.
And as we learn to kind of,
Yeah.
manage those passions,
Yeah.
we also start to loosen the grip of those fixations.
Right.
We become less reactive, more
Yeah.
adaptable,
Right.
and more resilient in the face of life's challenges.
It's like we're reclaiming our power.
Yes.
Yeah.
Becoming more conscious creators of our own lives.
I love that.
And as we do this work on ourselves,
Yeah.
we also develop more compassion
Yeah.
and understanding for others.
Right.
We start to see that everyone
Yeah.
is struggling with their own passions
Right.
and fixations, their own unique set of challenges.
It's like that saying,
Yeah.
everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about.
Exactly. And the Enneagram gives us a language to talk about those battles.
Oh, nice.
A way to connect with each other on a deeper level.
Right.
So
right.
we're all in this together,
right.
supporting each other on this journey
Yeah,
of self-discovery and growth.
absolutely.
Ultimately, that's what the Enneagram is all about.
Yeah,
Fostering compassion, understanding, and connection,
right.
both within ourselves
Yeah.
and with the world around us.
This has been a really amazing deep dive.
It has.
I feel like I have a whole new perspective on the Enneagram.
Too.
What about you?
Yeah, for me, the biggest takeaway is that we are not defined by our Enneagram type.
Right.
It's simply a roadmap, a tool
right.
to help us understand our patterns
Right.
and make more conscious choices.
Yeah.
The real work happens in our everyday lives and how we choose to show up,
Yeah.
how we interact with others,
Right.
and how we navigate those inevitable challenges that life throws our way.
Yeah. So to all of you listeners out there,
Yeah.
we encourage you to continue this exploration.
Yes.
Pay attention
Pay attention.
to how these passions and fixations
Yes.
are showing up
In your life.
in your life and in the lives of the people around you.
Yeah.
And remember,
Yeah.
it's not about judgment.
This is not about judgment.
It's about understanding,
Understanding.
compassion,
Compassion.
and growth.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the heart of the Enneagram.
Yes.
Until next time, keep seeking knowledge and keep diving deep.
Absolutely.